The leather of my wallet has worn thin where I've rubbed my thumb across it for 20 years. Inside, tucked behind expired insurance cards and faded receipts, sits a photograph of Sarah at 17, her high school graduation day. She's mid-laugh, mortarboard tilted at that rebellious angle she insisted on, despite her mother's protests. That was the last good day we had together, though I didn't know it then. I'm Thomas Brennan, 73 years old now, and I've learned that money changes everything except the past. 6 months ago, I sold my software company for $42 million. The news made the business sections, complete with a photo of me shaking hands with the CEO of the acquiring corporation. I looked successful in that picture, silver-haired, well-dressed, confident. Nothing like the broken man I'd been for 2 decades. The call came 3 weeks after the sale went public. A known number, but somehow I knew. Dad? Her voice was older, more cautious, but unmistakably Sarah's. My throat closed up. I'd rehearsed this moment 10,000 times, but every practiced word evaporated. Sarah, I saw the news about your company. Congratulations. 20 years of silence, and she led with congratulations. Not, I'm sorry, or, I miss you, or even, how have you been? Just congratulations on my money. Thank you, I managed. Listen, Dad. I know it's been a long time, but the kids, my kids, they've been asking about their grandfather. And with Christmas coming up, would you like to join us for dinner? The kids? Grandchildren I'd never met. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling the weight of all those missing years. Yes, I said before my pride could stop me. Yes, I'd like that very much. She gave me the details quickly, efficiently, like she was scheduling a business meeting. December 23rd, 7 o'clock. Her address in Westchester, a good neighborhood, I noted. She'd done well for herself, apparently. The call lasted less than 3 minutes. After she hung up, I sat in my empty mansion, surrounded by all the trappings of success I'd accumulated too late, and I wept. Not just for the invitation, but for what it represented. She'd called because I was rich now. Not because she'd forgiven me, not because she missed me, but because $42 million had finally made me worth knowing again. But she didn't know the truth about why I'd pushed so hard all these years, why I'd built that company from nothing, working 18-hour days when other men my age were retiring. She didn't know about the diagnosis I'd received 2 years ago, or the experimental treatment that had bought me time I probably didn't deserve. She didn't know about the letters I'd written her every birthday and Christmas, all returned unopened. She didn't know about the private investigator who'd kept me informed of her life from a distance, her wedding, her children's births, her husband's promotion, their move to the bigger house. Most importantly, she didn't know what I planned to tell her at that dinner table. To understand why my daughter cut me off, you need to understand who I was 20 years ago. I was 53, working as a mid-level accountant at a firm that treated employees like furniture, useful, replaceable, and expected to bear weight without complaint. My wife, Linda, had been diagnosed with ALS 2 years prior, and watching her deteriorate was killing something inside me daily. Sarah was 22 then, fresh out of college with a degree in social work and a heart full of idealistic dreams about changing the world. She'd moved back home to help with Linda's care, putting her own life on hold. I should have been grateful. Instead, I was resentful. The medical bills were astronomical. Insurance covered some, but the experimental treatments Linda wanted to try, the home modifications, the specialized equipment, it was bleeding us dry. I started drinking. Not falling down drunk, but steadily, consistently, numbingly. Whiskey in my coffee, vodka in my lunch break, wine with dinner, scotch until I passed out. It was the only way I could face Linda's deteriorating condition and our deteriorating finances. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. Sarah had arranged for a specialist from Johns Hopkins to consult on Linda's case, virtually, because we couldn't afford the trip to Baltimore. The consultation fee alone was $3,000, money we didn't have. Sarah had used her credit card, maxing it out. How could you make that decision without asking me? I'd roared, whiskey thick on my breath. Mom wanted to try, Dad. She has the right to hope. Hope doesn't pay bills, Sarah. Hope doesn't keep the roof over our heads. Money isn't everything. Easy for you to say when you're not the one earning it. The words that followed were cruel, painted with the broad brush of a drunk's self-pity. I called her naive, useless, a burden. I said things about Linda that no husband should say, no daughter should hear. I blamed them both for my misery, for my failure, for everything wrong in my life. Sarah's face had gone white, then red, then white again. "You're not the man Mom married," she said quietly. "You're not the father who raised me. You're just a bitter, selfish drunk, and I'm done pretending otherwise." She left that night, packed a bag while I continued ranting, helped Linda into her wheelchair, and left. They went to Linda's sister's house. The divorce papers came a week later. Linda died 6 months later. Sarah didn't tell me about the funeral until after it happened. The last time I saw my wife, she was being wheeled out our front door, looking back at me with eyes full of pity, not anger. That look haunted me more than any accusation could have. Sarah's final message came through our lawyer. "Don't contact me. You've broken everything that mattered. Live with your money and your bottles. They're all you really loved anyway." She was wrong about that. But being wrong didn't make me any less guilty. Rock Bottom has a basement, and I found it 3 months after Linda's death. I woke up in a hospital room, machines beeping around me, a tube down my throat. Alcohol poisoning, the doctor said. Another few hours and I would have joined Linda. The nurse, a kind woman named Patricia, sat with me during the worst of the withdrawal. "You got family to call?" she asked. "No," I said, and for the first time, truly felt the weight of that word. Patricia didn't judge. She'd seen too many like me. But she did something that changed everything. She introduced me to Marcus, a recovery counselor who'd been sober for 15 years. "You want to die?" Marcus asked bluntly during our first session. "I don't know. That's honest. Most people lie. Here's the thing, Thomas, you can drink yourself to death, probably take another 6 months to a year to do it properly. Or you can decide that maybe, just maybe, you've got something left to do here." "Like what?" "I don't know. What did you used to dream about? Before the bottle, before the bills, before it all went to hell?" The answer surprised me. I wanted to start my own business. Software development. I used to code as a hobby, back when Sarah was young. I'd teach her simple programs, little games we'd make together. Marcus leaned forward. "So why not now?" "I'm 53 years old, Marcus. I'm a washed-up drunk who destroyed his family. You're 53 years old with nothing left to lose. That's the most dangerous kind of entrepreneur there is. Sobriety is a strange gift. It returns your clarity just in time to see exactly how much damage you've done." But Marcus was right about one thing: having nothing left to lose is a peculiar kind of freedom. I started coding again in the public library. Couldn't afford internet at the roach-infested studio apartment I'd moved into after selling the house. Every morning, I'd arrive when they opened at 9, claim a computer in the back corner, and lose myself in lines of code until they kicked me out at closing. The first program I wrote was a sobriety tracker app. Nothing fancy, just a calendar that counted days, logged triggers, and connected to local AA meetings. I called it One More Day. It was crude, basic, but it was mine. I posted it on a recovery forum, free to download. Within a week, I had 100 users. Within a month, 1,000. People started sending suggestions, reporting bugs, sharing how it helped them. For the first time in years, I was building something instead of destroying it. That's when I met Janet Chin, a venture capitalist who'd been in recovery for 10 years. She found my app, used it, and reached out with a proposition. "This is good, Thomas, but it could be great. I want to fund you to build a comprehensive recovery platform. Therapy scheduling, medication reminders, sponsor connections, crisis intervention, the whole ecosystem." "I'm nobody," I told her. "I'm a 54-year-old failed accountant coding in a library. You're a developer who understands the user because you are the user. That's worth more than any Stanford degree." She offered me seed funding, enough to rent a real office, buy equipment, hire 2 junior developers. The catch? I had to stay sober. Random testing, weekly check-ins with Marcus, full transparency. "Relapse, and I pull everything," she said. Fair enough. We called the company Recovery Networks. The platform we built wasn't just an app, it was a lifeline. AI-powered crisis detection, real-time therapist connections, community support groups, employment resources for people rebuilding their lives. Every feature came from a real need I'd experienced or witnessed in meetings. Sarah would have been proud of the social impact, I caught myself thinking sometimes. Then I'd push the thought away and code harder. 5 years in, Google tried to buy us for $10 million. I turned them down. Not out of greed, but because I wasn't done building. We had 50,000 active users whose lives depended on our platform. Selling felt like another abandonment. But late at night, after the office emptied, I'd sometimes pull up Sarah's social media profiles. Privacy settings kept me from seeing much, but profile pictures were public. I watched her age in annual increments, saw her wedding photo, the announcement of her first pregnancy, glimpses of a life I wasn't part of. I never reached out. What would I say? Sorry I destroyed our family, but look, I'm rich and sober now. Money and sobriety didn't erase the past. They just made living with it more bearable. 10 years into building recovery networks, I started getting headaches. Nothing major at first, just pressure behind my eyes after long coding sessions. I ignored them, popped ibuprofen, kept working. Classic entrepreneur behavior, Marcus said. Classic addict behavior, too: ignore the pain, push through, maintain the high of productivity. The seizure happened during a board meeting. One moment I was presenting quarterly projections, the next I was on the floor, Janet's panicked face above me. The EMT said I was lucky it happened around people. Lucky. That word followed me to the neurologist's office, through the MRI, to the moment Dr. Patel showed me the scan. Glioblastoma, she said gently. Grade 4. I knew enough to understand that was bad. How long? With treatment, median survival is 15 months. Without it, 3 to 6 months. And with experimental treatment? She hesitated. There's a new immunotherapy trial at Sloan Kettering. It's shown promise, but it's expensive. Extremely. And not covered by insurance. How expensive? $200,000 just to enter the trial. Could go higher depending on response. $200,000. I had money now, but not that kind of liquid capital. Not without selling pieces of the company. There's something else. Dr. Patel continued. The treatment is intense. You'll need support, family. I'll manage. I started liquidating assets that week. Sold my condo, my car, cashed out my retirement. When that wasn't enough, I began shopping the company to potential buyers, quietly, without telling the team. That's when Megatech entered the picture, a giant in the tech world, known for acquiring and scaling promising platforms. They offered $42 million. That's insane money, Thomas, Janet said when I told her. Take it. I did. But I had conditions. The platform had to remain free for basic users. No data selling. No predatory premium features targeting vulnerable people in crisis. They agreed, probably thinking I was a sentimental fool. They didn't know I was a dying fool trying to ensure my only good legacy survived me. The experimental treatment worked better than anyone expected. The tumor shrank by 60% in 6 months. Remarkable response, Dr. Patel said, though she was careful to avoid the word cure. You've bought yourself time, Mr. Brennan. Maybe years. Years. I was 63, suddenly wealthy, possibly dying, definitely alone. That's when I made a decision that Marcus called either the healthiest or most masochistic thing you've ever done. I hired a private investigator to find out everything about Sarah's life. The investigator's name was Rodriguez, and he had the demeanor of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. Former cop, he said, though he didn't elaborate on the former part. I gave him Sarah's last known information and asked for regular updates. Nothing invasive, no photos through windows or anything like that. Just information. You could just call her, he said. She made it clear that wasn't an option. That was 10 years ago. Some things don't have expiration dates. He shrugged and took the job. The first report came 2 weeks later. Sarah lived in Westchester with her husband, David Martinez, a pediatric surgeon at Mount Sinai. They had 2 children, Emma, 8, and Thomas, 6. Thomas. She named her son Thomas. I stared at that line in the report for an hour, trying to decode what it meant. Was it honoring the father she'd once loved, or was it ironic, a reminder of disappointment? Rodriguez couldn't tell me that. Nobody could accept Sarah, and she wasn't talking to me. The reports continued monthly. Emma was in gymnastics, showing real promise. Young Thomas, they called him Tommy, was diagnosed with mild autism, high functioning, brilliant with numbers. Just like his grandfather, I thought with bitter pride. David seemed to be a good man, devoted father, no red flags in his background. Sarah worked as a director at a nonprofit focused on addiction recovery services. That detail hit me hardest. She'd dedicated her professional life to helping people like me, people who'd lost themselves to substance abuse. Was it penance for not saving her father? Or was it her way of saving all the fathers she couldn't save in me? Rodriguez also reported financial stress. Medical school debt, Tommy's therapy costs, a mortgage that stretched them thin despite David's good salary. They were comfortable but not secure, one crisis away from real trouble. I wanted to help. God, how I wanted to just write a check, make their problems disappear. But anonymous money would raise questions, and reaching out directly was still forbidden territory. So I found other ways. The nonprofit where Sarah worked suddenly received a large anonymous donation earmarked for expanding their family support services, the exact program she managed. Tommy's therapy center got a grant that covered specialized equipment and reduced rates for middle-income families. Emma's gymnastics club found a mysterious benefactor who sponsored promising young athletes. I was playing God from a distance, trying to parent through tax-deductible donations. Marcus said it was still avoiding the real issue, and he was right. But it was all I had. Then the sale of my company made the news, and my anonymity evaporated. My picture was everywhere: tech blogs, business sections, even a mention on cable news as a feel-good story about second chances and late life success. Rodriguez called the day after the news broke. "She knows," he said simply. "She Googled you." Spent 3 hours reading articles. And nothing. Yet. We waited 3 weeks. Then my phone rang, unknown number, and I heard my daughter's voice for the first time in 20 years. After Sarah's call, I had 3 weeks to prepare for Christmas dinner. 3 weeks to decide what to wear, what to bring, what to say. 3 weeks to figure out how to compress 20 years of apology into one evening. 3 weeks to decide whether to tell her about the tumor. I bought and returned 14 different outfits. 2 formal seemed pretentious. Look how successful I am now. 2 casual felt disrespectful. I finally settled on clothes I would have worn to Sunday dinner back when we still had Sunday dinners. Khakis, a blue button-down, a cardigan Linda had given me that I'd kept all these years. It still smelled faintly of her perfume, or maybe that was my imagination. The gifts were harder. What do you buy grandchildren you've never met? Emma was 8. Dolls? Books? Electronics? Tommy was 6 and autistic. Rodriguez's research said he loved patterns, numbers, trains. I spent entire days in toy stores, paralyzed by choice, watched by concerned staff who probably thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Finally, I called Marcus. "I need help." He met me at FAO Schwartz, this 70-year-old black man in recovery guiding a wealthy white executive through the toy aisles like some kind of Christmas miracle. "Stop overthinking," he said. "What would you have gotten Sarah at their ages? Books. Always books. And puzzles. We'd work on them together for hours. So get that. But what if? Thomas, you're not going to fix 20 years with the perfect gift. Just show up. Be present. Be honest." I bought books and puzzles. For Emma, a complete Chronicles of Narnia set and a 1,000-piece puzzle of the night sky. For Tommy, books about trains and mathematics, plus a complex geometric puzzle that reminded me of code structures. For David, a bottle of 30-year-old scotch, then returned it because bringing alcohol felt wrong. Settled on a first-edition medical text I'd found at an antiquarian bookstore. For Sarah, I had something else planned entirely. The morning of December 23rd, I woke at 4 a.m., stone-cold sober but feeling drunk on anxiety. I threw up twice, couldn't eat breakfast, changed clothes 3 times. The car service arrived at 6 p.m. for the hour drive to Westchester. I'd hired a driver because my hands were shaking too badly to trust myself behind the wheel. The house was exactly what I'd imagined from Rodriguez's reports. A colonial in a tree-lined neighborhood, warm lights spilling from windows, inflatable reindeer on the lawn that had seen better days. The kind of home where children grew up safe and loved. The kind I'd once provided before I burned it all down. I stood on the porch for a full minute before ringing the doorbell, gifts balanced in my arms, heart hammering against my ribs. Through the frosted glass, I saw a figure approaching, Sarah's silhouette, taller now, moving with her mother's grace. The door opened, and there she was. 42 years old, crow's feet around her eyes, streaks of silver in her brown hair, Linda's nose, my stubborn chin. Beautiful and strange and familiar all at once. "Dad," she said. Not "hello" or "come in" or "good to see you." Just "Dad," like she was trying the word out after 20 years, seeing if it still fit. "Sarah." My voice cracked like a teenager's. We stood there, frozen, until a small voice behind her said, "Is that Grandpa?" Tommy was the one who saved us from drowning in that doorway moment. He pushed past his mother, looked up at me with eyes that were pure Sarah at that age, and said, "You're 73. 7 years old based on your birth date, which makes you statistically likely to live another 11. 2 years according to actuarial tables." I laughed, couldn't help it. "That's exactly right. You must be Tommy. Thomas Matthew Martinez. Tommy is a diminutive. You're Thomas too. That's called a namesake." "Yes, it is." Sarah's hand went to Tommy's shoulder, protective or supportive, I couldn't tell. "Tommy, let Grandpa come inside. It's cold." "Grandpa." The word hit like lightning. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, exactly how Christmas should smell. David appeared from the kitchen, flower in his hair, extended his hand. "Tom. Good to finally meet you." His grip was firm but not aggressive, a surgeon's careful strength. "Thank you for having me." Emma hung back by the stairs, studying me with Sarah's evaluating eyes. She was all legs and skepticism, 8 going on 18. "Emma, come say hello," Sarah prompted. She approached slowly, like I might bite. "Mom says you build computers." "Software, actually. Programs that run on computers. Can you teach me?" "Emma?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "We haven't even had dinner yet." "It's okay," I said quickly. "I'd love to teach you. If your parents are okay with it." David and Sarah exchanged a look I couldn't read. 20 years of marriage had given them a silent language I'd never learn. "Let's eat first," David suggested diplomatically. The dining room was formal but warm, clearly set with the good china. They'd made an effort. I didn't know whether to be touched or insulted. Maybe both. "You can sit here, Grandpa," Tommy announced, pointing to a chair that gave me a direct view of Sarah across the table. Strategic placement or coincidence? The food was elaborate. Turkey, 3 kinds of potatoes, green beans, rolls, the full production. David had clearly been cooking all day. Conversation started safe: weather, traffic, the kids' schools. We were all dancing around the elephant in the room, or rather, the 20-year silence sitting between the mashed potatoes and gravy. It was Emma who finally broke the détente. "Why didn't you ever visit before?" "Emma!" Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. "It's okay," I said, though my throat felt full of sand. "She deserves to know." I looked directly at Emma. "I made some very bad mistakes when your mother was young. I hurt her and your grandmother badly. Your mother asked me to stay away, and I respected that. But now you're here," Tommy observed. "What changed?" Sarah's face flushed. David cleared his throat. This was it, the moment where the real reason for my invitation would be revealed. "I got successful," I said simply. "I sold my company for a lot of money, and it was in the news. Your mother saw it and decided to reach out." "Because you're rich now?" Emma asked with a child's brutal honesty. "Emma, that's not—" Sarah started. "Yes," I interrupted. "That's what I thought too." The table went silent. Sarah's face cycled through emotions: shame, anger, hurt, defiance. "But I was wrong," I continued. Your mother didn't call because I got rich. She called because the news articles mentioned something else, that I'd been sober for 20 years. That the company I built helps people in recovery. She called because she thought maybe, just maybe, I'd become someone worth knowing again. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I'm not finished, I said gently. There's something else you all need to know. The reason I sold the company. The reason I'm really here. David was the first to understand. Maybe it was his medical training, the way he noticed my slight tremor, the careful way I'd been cutting my meat, the medication organizer barely visible in my jacket pocket when I'd reached for my water. Tom, he said quietly. Are you sick? Sarah's head snapped toward me. What? Dad, what is he talking about? I set down my fork, took a breath. This wasn't how I'd planned to tell them, but when had anything in my life gone according to plan? 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with glioblastoma. Brain cancer. Terminal. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Emma looked confused. Tommy was calculating something in his head. I could see his lips moving slightly. Sarah had gone white. David had shifted into doctor mode, professional and alert. But you said 2 years ago, David said. Glioblastoma typically. 15 months median survival, yes. I've been in an experimental treatment program. It's been remarkably effective. How effective? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. The tumor has shrunk significantly. I might have years. Or months. They don't really know. I'm what they call an exceptional responder, which is medical speak for we have no idea why you're still alive. Is that why you sold the company? David asked. Partly. The treatment is expensive. But mostly. I looked at Sarah. Mostly I sold it because I realized I'd spent 20 years building something to fill the hole where my family used to be. And if I only had a little time left, I didn't want to spend it in board meetings. So you're here because you're dying. Sarah's voice had turned hard, defensive. No. I'm here because you invited me. I'm dying regardless of where I spend Christmas. Tommy suddenly spoke up. Statistically, glioblastoma patients who survive 2 years have a 5% chance of surviving 5 years. But experimental treatments can shift those probabilities. What's your specific protocol? Everyone stared at him. I found myself smiling. Immunotherapy combined with targeted radiation. You really are a numbers kid, aren't you? Numbers make sense, Tommy said simply. People don't. Tommy! Sarah admonished. It's okay. He's right. People don't make sense. I certainly didn't for a very long time. Emma had been quiet, processing. Now she looked at me with those 2 wise eyes. Are you going to die soon? I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. But everyone dies eventually. That's not an answer. You're right. The honest answer is, probably sooner than I'd like, but later than the doctors expected. Will it hurt? Sarah made a sound like she'd been punched. David reached for her hand. I don't know, I admitted. But I have good doctors. They'll help make sure it doesn't. The room fell silent again. Outside, I could hear cars passing, normal families having normal Christmases, unburdened by terminal diagnoses and 20-year estrangements. Then Tommy asked, Is that why you've been helping us? Everyone froze. What do you mean, baby? Sarah asked carefully. Tommy looked at her like she was being deliberately obtuse. The anonymous donations to Mom's work. The grant at my therapy center. Emma's gymnastics sponsor. It started 3 years ago, right after Grandpa got sick but before he got famous. The statistical probability of that being coincidence is less than 0.3%. Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. Nobody moved. The brown liquid spread like an accusation between us. Tommy, how could you possibly? Sarah started. Pattern recognition, Tommy said, unbothered by his mother's distress. The donations all came from the same LLC registered in Delaware. Phoenix Foundation. Phoenix rises from ashes. Grandpa's company was called Recovery Networks. Recovery is like rising from ashes. The timing correlates with his diagnosis. Also, the donation amounts are algorithmically structured, someone who thinks in code would choose those specific numbers. David knelt to clean up the coffee, probably grateful for something to do with his hands. Tom, is this true? Yes. For 3 years? Sarah's voice was rising. You've been. What, stalking us? Watching us? I hired someone to check on you periodically. Nothing invasive. Just making sure you were okay. Making sure we were okay. She laughed, but it was razor sharp. You destroyed our family, disappeared for 17 years, then hired someone to spy on us. Sarah. David warned. No. He doesn't get to do this. He doesn't get to play guardian angel from the shadows. He doesn't get to buy his way back into our lives. I wasn't trying to buy anything, I said quietly. I just wanted to help. Why didn't you just call? Write a letter? Show up? You told me not to contact you. That was 20 years ago. I was 22 and grieving my mother. And I was the reason you were grieving alone. Emma suddenly stood up. I don't like this. Everyone's yelling. We're not yelling, sweetie. David said, though we clearly were. Yes, you are. And Grandpa looks like he's going to cry. And Mom's hands are shaking. And Tommy's rocking, which means he's stressed. She looked around the table. This isn't how Christmas is supposed to be. She was right. Tommy was indeed rocking slightly, a self-soothing behavior. Sarah's hands were trembling as she pressed them against the table. And I could feel moisture gathering in my eyes, decades of unshed tears threatening to break free. Emma's right, I said. This isn't what any of us wanted. I should go. No, Tommy said loudly, surprising everyone. You can't go. You haven't given Mom the present. I froze. How did you? You kept touching your jacket pocket during dinner. Something small but important. The way you touch it matches behavioral patterns of someone carrying something valuable. Not monetary valuable. Emotional valuable. This kid was going to grow up to be either a detective or a supervillain. Tommy, that's enough, Sarah said, but her eyes were on me. Dad, what's in your pocket? I reached in slowly, pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying. Set it on the table between us. Sarah stared at it like it might explode. What is that? Open it. She reached across the table with unsteady hands, took the box, flipped it open. Her gasp was sharp, pained. Mom's rings? Her wedding ring and the emerald engagement ring my father gave my mother that I gave to her. I thought you would have sold them. During the bad times. I sold everything else. The house, the car, my watch, my father's cufflinks. But never these. Never these. Sarah pulled out the emerald ring, held it up to the light. Emma leaned in, mesmerized by how it caught the chandelier's glow. It's beautiful, Emma breathed. Your grandmother was beautiful, I said. Inside and out. Even at the end, when I'd made her life hell, she was still the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Why now? Sarah asked. Why give these to me now? This was it. The moment I'd really come for. The truth that would change everything. Because I need to tell you something about your mother's death. Something I've never told anyone. Sarah's hand closed around the rings. What about her death? The day she left with you, the last time I saw her, she already knew she was dying. The ALS had progressed faster than anyone expected. The doctors had given her 3 months, maybe 4. She didn't tell you because she didn't want you making decisions based on that timeline. Sarah's face crumbled. What? She called me from your aunt's house that night. After you'd gone to bed. She could barely speak by then, but she managed to tell me what the doctors had said. And she asked me to do something. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. She asked me to be the villain? To stay away. To let you hate me completely, cleanly, so you could move on without guilt. She said, let her blame you for everything. It's easier to hate than to grieve. She made me promise not to come to the funeral, not to reach out, not to defend myself. She said the greatest gift I could give you was to be the monster you needed me to be. No. Sarah shook her head. No, she wouldn't. She would, and she did. Your mother was always protecting you, even from your own heart. She knew if you understood how sick I was, how the drinking was my pathetic way of coping with losing her. You'd tried to save me. You'd put your life on hold again. She didn't want that. David had gone very still. Emma was crying silently. Tommy had stopped rocking, his analytical mind processing this new data. I kept that promise for 20 years. I continued. Through the recovery, through building the company, through every birthday and Christmas when I wanted nothing more than to hear your voice. I kept it even when I was diagnosed, even when I thought I was dying. I would have taken it to my grave except. Except what? Sarah's voice was broken glass. Except you called me. You reached out. And I realized your mother's plan had worked too well. You'd built a life, a beautiful family, a career helping others. You'd become the woman she wanted you to be. But you did it carrying hatred that was never fully earned. Half of it, yes, I was a drunk, selfish, cruel. But not all of it. And I couldn't die letting you think she abandoned you by choice that night. She left to protect you from watching her die in a house poisoned by my failures. Sarah was sobbing now, ugly, wrenching sobs. David moved to comfort her, but she waved him off. You let me hate you for 20 years. Yes. You could have told me any time. And broken the last promise I made to your mother? No. Then why now? Because you're 42 years old with your own children, and you understand that parents make impossible choices. Because I'm dying and tired of carrying this alone. Because when I saw Tommy tonight, I looked at my grandson. I realized secrets have a way of revealing themselves anyway. Better you hear it from me. Tommy spoke into the silence. Grandma was applying game theory. Minimize emotional damage by concentrating blame on the person already compromised. It's mathematically sound. Tommy, David said. What? It's true. Grandma made the logical choice. Grandpa was already broken. Mom could still be saved. It's what any algorithm would choose. Sarah laughed through her tears, a sound somewhere between hysteria and relief. Oh God, Tommy. Only you could reduce 20 years of family trauma to an algorithm. Algorithms are just patterns, Tommy said. Families are patterns too. Just messier ones. Emma was the one who suggested we move to the living room. Nobody ever feels better sitting at a dinner table, she said with 8-year-old wisdom. Couches are for feelings. So we migrated, carrying wine for the adults, juice for the kids, leaving the destroyed dinner behind like a battlefield. Sarah sat across from me, still clutching her mother's rings. David built a fire while the kids settled on the floor with a puzzle, the one I'd brought for Emma, I realized with a start. Tell me about the company, Sarah said finally. Recovery Networks. I've read about it, but tell me. So I did. I told her about coding in the library, about Janet Chen's faith in a broken accountant, about every feature born from a meeting where someone shared their struggle. I told her about the users who sent thank you notes, about the suicide we prevented with our crisis detection AI, about the mother who got her kids back because our platform helped her prove 6 months of sobriety. We have over 1 million users now, I said. Even after the sale, it's still growing. You built something Mom would have been proud of, Sarah said softly. I built it because losing you both was the only thing that hurt more than staying sober. Tommy looked up from the puzzle. Did you know that addiction has a genetic component? There's a 50% hereditary factor. Tommy, not now, David said gently. It's relevant. If Grandpa has addiction genetics, and Mom has them through him, then Emma and I have a 25% chance of inheriting them. It's important medical history. Sarah and I locked eyes. The kid was right, of course. Our family's brokenness wasn't just emotional, it was encoded in our DNA. Your grandfather has been sober for 20 years, Sarah told her children firmly. That's also part of your inheritance. Sobriety isn't genetic, Tommy corrected. No, I agreed. But the choice to fight is. And your mother has been fighting her whole life, even when she didn't know what she was fighting against. Emma abandoned the puzzle to sit next to me on the couch. Grandpa? Will you teach me to code? If your parents are okay with it. Sarah and David had another of their silent conversations. Finally, Sarah nodded. Once a week. Supervised. Supervised? I asked. I'll be there too. I want to learn. She met my eyes. I want to understand what you built. What kept you going all those years? It's not easy. I run a nonprofit, Dad. I manage budgets, write grants, analyze data. I think I can handle some basic coding. Dad? She'd called me Dad again. What about me? Tommy asked. I already know basic Python. You do? I was genuinely surprised. Self-taught. YouTube tutorials. I built a program that calculates optimal Pokemon team compositions. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time all evening. Of course you did. Okay, advanced lessons for Tommy. David cleared his throat. I should probably mention, I've been looking into clinical trials for glioblastoma patients. Johns Hopkins has a new combination therapy showing promise. I could make some calls. You'd do that? You're my children's grandfather. Emma's right, family is supposed to be together at Christmas. And after, if possible. The fire crackled. Outside, snow had started falling, dusting the world in temporary perfection. Emma had curled against my side, a warmth I hadn't earned but desperately wanted to keep. Tommy was back to his puzzle, but I could see him glancing at me, categorizing, analyzing, accepting. Sarah stood suddenly. I need to show you something. Sarah led me upstairs, past family photos I wasn't in, past Tommy's room with mathematical equations taped to the door, past Emma's room bursting with gymnastics trophies. At the end of the hall, she opened a door to what looked like a home office. But it wasn't just an office. The walls were covered with printed articles, every piece of press about recovery networks, every interview I'd given, every success story we'd published. A timeline ran along one wall, marking milestones in the company's growth. On the desk sat a well-worn copy of One More Day, the original recovery app I'd built in the library. You've been following it, I said, stunned. For 10 years. Since Janet Chen gave that TED Talk mentioning you. Sarah touched one of the articles. I told myself I was just doing market research for my nonprofit. Understanding the competition. But I was watching you get better. Every update, every feature you added, every life saved, I could see you in the code. The father I remembered before everything went wrong. She pulled out a file drawer, revealing hundreds of printed emails. These are from your users. The ones who went public with their stories. I reached out to some of them through my nonprofit work. They all said the same thing, that recovery networks saved their lives. That whoever built it understood addiction from the inside. Sarah. I wrote you letters. She interrupted. Hundreds of them. Never sent any, but I wrote them. Angry ones at first. Then confused ones. Then. She pulled out a notebook, pages covered with her handwriting. Then these. I took the notebook with shaking hands, read a random entry. Asterisk. Dad's company hit 500,000 users today. I wonder if he knows that one of them is me. I've been using his platform for my clients at the nonprofit. It's brilliant. Intuitive. Compassionate. Everything he wasn't at the end. Or maybe everything he always was, just buried under the disease. Asterisk. You use recovery networks? We recommend it to all our clients. It's the best platform available. I've watched your code save marriages, reunite families, pull people back from the edge. She took a shuddering breath. I've watched you save everyone except us. I couldn't save us. That was the point. I was the damage you needed to escape from. No, she said firmly. You were sick. Mom was dying. We were all drowning separately when we should have been holding on to each other. She moved to another wall, where a single photo hung, Linda, Sarah, and me at Sarah's high school graduation. The last good day. I kept this to remind myself that we were happy once. That you were good once. That maybe, somewhere under all that pain and whiskey, that man still existed. He died when your mother left, I said honestly. But someone new was born in recovery. Someone who could build things instead of destroying them. I just built them too late. It's not too late, Sarah said. You're here. You're alive. The kids already adore you. David respects you. And I. She turned to face me fully. I'm tired of hating someone who doesn't exist anymore. I'm tired of grieving parents I lost in different ways. I want my dad back. Whatever time we have left, I want my dad back. I opened my arms, and my daughter fell into them, 20 years of separation collapsing into one embrace. She smelled like vanilla and coffee, different from the strawberry shampoo she used as a teenager, but still fundamentally Sarah. Still my little girl who used to debug code with me on Saturday mornings. I'm sorry, I whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I know. Me too. For not trying sooner. For letting pride and pain make my decisions. You were protecting yourself. I was punishing us both. We stayed like that until Emma's voice drifted up from downstairs. Are you guys okay? Tommy finished the puzzle and he's starting to organize the bookshelf alphabetically. Sarah laughed, wiping her eyes. We better get down there before he color codes everything. As we headed back down, she asked, How long? Really? Not the statistical answer you gave Tommy. 6 months to 5 years, depending on how well the treatment continues working. Dr. Patel leans toward the optimistic end. 5 years. Emma will be 13. Tommy will be 11. Old enough to remember me, if I do this right. You will, she said with sudden fierceness. We'll make sure of it. Back in the living room, we found David teaching Tommy chess while Emma had discovered my gift of books. Dad, he brought me Narnia, Emma announced. All 7 books. Did you know Grandpa knows about Narnia? Your mom loved those books. I told her. I read them to her when she was your age. Will you read them to me? I looked at Sarah. She nodded. If you'd like, we could read 1 chapter every time I come for coding lessons. That would take, Tommy calculated quickly, approximately 54 visits to complete all 7 books at 1 chapter per visit. Then I'd better stick around for at least 54 weeks. I said. 54 weeks is 4 years, Tommy added helpfully. Tommy, stop calculating Grandpa's mortality, David said, but he was smiling. The rest of the evening blurred into something I'd never dared imagine. David and I talked medicine. He was fascinated by the immunotherapy protocol, suggested specialists, offered to review my medical records. Emma performed her gymnastics floor routine in the living room, nearly knocking over a lamp, while Tommy provided statistical analysis of her probability of making the Olympic team, surprisingly high, according to his calculations. Sarah showed me photos from the years I'd missed, birthdays, holidays, first days of school, family vacations. Each one was a small knife, but a necessary one, cutting away the scar tissue of absence. This was Tommy's first piano recital, she said, showing me a video on her phone. He played a piece he composed himself based on mathematical sequences. In the video, 6-year-old Tommy sat at a grand piano, his feet not quite reaching the pedals, playing something that sounded like Bach filtered through a computer algorithm. It was bizarre and beautiful. He gets the math brain from you, Sarah said. The music from Mom. Your mother couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. No, but she understood rhythm. Patterns. The music beneath things. She looked at me. That's what she was doing at the end, wasn't she? Creating a pattern that would protect me, even if it hurt. She was a better strategist than anyone knew. As the evening wound down, Emma had fallen asleep against my shoulder. Tommy was teaching David his Pokemon algorithm. Sarah was in the kitchen, packing up leftovers she insisted I take home. This is nice, David said quietly. The kids needed this. Sarah needed this. I'm grateful you allowed it. I almost didn't. When she told me she'd invited you, we fought. I'd spent 10 years watching her carry this wound. But then she showed me that room upstairs, and I understood. She never really let you go. She just buried you alive. And now? Now we resurrect you. Carefully. With boundaries. With therapy, yes, you're both going to family counseling, that's non-negotiable. But we do it. For them. He gestured to the children. For her. And honestly, for you. You seem like a good man who lost his way. That could happen to any of us. Sarah returned with multiple containers of food. You'll come for Christmas Day tomorrow? You want me to? The kids will riot if you don't. Emma already told Tommy that Grandpa is going to teach them to build video games. That's significantly more complex than Tommy started. I know, baby, Sarah said. But Grandpa has time to teach you. Right, Dad? All the time I have. I promised. As I was putting on my coat, Sarah asked everyone to wait. Before Dad leaves, there's something else we need to discuss. Everyone gathered in the foyer. Sarah pulled out an envelope from the hall table. Dad, I know about the Phoenix Foundation. All of it. Not just the donations Tommy figured out. She opened the envelope, revealing legal documents. I know you've been paying off David's medical school loans. I know you bought the house next door when it went on the market to keep developers from building apartments. I know you've been funding Tommy's therapy under a fake insurance supplement program. David's head snapped toward her. What? You've spent almost $2 million on us in 3 years. Sarah continued. $2 million, Dad? I said nothing. There was nothing to say. But that's not the shocking part. She pulled out another document. This is your will. Rodriguez didn't just investigate us. I hired someone to investigate you back. Everything goes to us. The remaining $40 million, the royalties from recovery networks, all of it. With one condition. Emma had woken up, listening with wide eyes. Tommy was unusually still. The condition is that we use half to establish the Linda Brennan Center for Family Recovery. A residential program where families can heal together, where kids can stay with their recovering parents, where the kind of separation that happened to us doesn't have to happen to others. My knees nearly buckled. How did you? Your lawyer reached out to me last month for preliminary plans. He thought I should know, given my experience in the field. He didn't know I was your daughter, you'd listed me under my married name. But I knew the moment I saw the center's name. You weren't supposed to find out until you died? No. We're done with posthumous revelations. We're done with secrets and sacrifices and noble suffering. You want to build this center? We build it together. You want to leave a legacy? You do it while you're alive to see it. You want to honor Mom? You do it with your family beside you. David was reading the documents. Tom, this is extraordinary. $40 million is a lot of money, Tommy said. The statistical impact on addiction recovery could affect thousands of families. Hundreds of thousands, Sarah corrected. With the right program model. Emma tugged on my coat. Grandpa, are you really rich? Yes, sweetheart. But you were poor before? Very poor. And more importantly, I was emotionally bankrupt. She considered this. Which is worse? Being emotionally bankrupt. Money you can earn back. Time with family, once lost, is gone forever. But we have time now, she said simply. Tommy calculated. Statistically, you have at least a year. Maybe 5. That's a lot of Christmases. Yes, I agreed, my voice thick. It is. Sarah stepped forward. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come for Christmas Day tomorrow. Then New Year's. Then weekly for coding lessons. We're going to have Sunday dinners. The kids are going to know their grandfather. David's going to get you into those clinical trials. We're going to build Mom's center together. And we're going to do it all while you're alive and present and fighting. Sarah. No arguments. You kept Mom's last wish for 20 years. Now you're going to honor mine. You're going to live, Dad. Really live, not just survive. You're going to be present for every moment we have left. Deal? I looked around the foyer, at David's supportive nod, at Tommy's calculating gaze already planning our coding curriculum, at Emma's sleepy smile, at Sarah's fierce determination that was pure Linda. Deal, I said. Sarah hugged me again, and this time the whole family joined in. Even Tommy, who usually avoided physical contact, pressed in against my side. I love you all, I said, the words rusty from disuse but true. We love you too, Grandpa, Emma said. Even if you were bad before. You're good now. As I finally left, walking toward the waiting car, I heard Tommy's voice through the door. Statistically, family reconciliation after 20-year estrangement has only a 15% success rate. And Sarah's response, then we'll be statistical anomalies. We're Brennans. We've always been outliers. #epilogue, 5 years later. I lived to see the Linda Brennan Center open its doors. I lived to teach Emma to code her first app, a gymnastics scoring system that got her a scholarship to MIT. I lived to watch Tommy enter Yale at 14, double majoring in mathematics and philosophy. I lived to walk Sarah through the center's hallways as she treated families learning to heal together. I lived to see David pioneer a new surgical technique partly inspired by coding algorithms I'd explained. I lived to hold my third grandchild, Linda Marie, named for the grandmother she'd never meet but whose legacy surrounded her. I lived to celebrate 5 years of impossible remission, baffling my doctors and delighting my family. But more importantly, I lived. Not just survived, but truly lived. Sunday dinners and birthday parties, graduation ceremonies and piano recitals, coding lessons that turned into life lessons, conversations that healed wounds I thought were permanent. The tumor returned, as we all knew it would. But by then, the work was done. The center was thriving. The family was whole. The past was forgiven, if not forgotten. On my last conscious day, Sarah sat beside my hospital bed, holding my hand while the grandchildren video called from their various colleges. "Dad," she said, "I need you to know something. Mom would be so proud. Of you, of what you built, of how you came back to us." "I never really left," I said. "I was just lost for a while." 20 years is a long while. But not as long as 5 years of being found. She squeezed my hand. Was it worth it? The pain, the struggle, the long journey back? I thought of that Christmas dinner 5 years ago, when I'd arrived broken and rich and dying, carrying secrets and guilt and desperate hope. I thought of shocking everyone with the truth, not about money or success, but about love that endures even through abandonment, about promises kept even when they destroy you, about families that can resurrect even after 20 years in the grave. "Every minute," I said. "Every single minute." The Phoenix Foundation lives on. Recovery Networks has saved over 1 million lives. The Linda Brennan Center has reunited hundreds of families. Emma is developing AI to predict addiction relapses before they happen. Tommy is working on mathematical models for optimal recovery protocols. Sarah runs an empire of healing. And somewhere, I like to think, Linda is watching. Proud of the man I became too late, but not too late enough. Proud of the daughter we raised. Proud of the grandchildren who carry our mixed legacy of brilliance and brokenness, addiction and recovery, failure and redemption. This is my story. A story of 20 years lost and 5 years found. A story of how $42 million meant nothing compared to one Christmas dinner. A story of what I told them at the table, that money wasn't my fortune. They were. They always were.